Okay, hold on one second. This is the yearbook from 2002. And this, wait, here we go. This is me. 20 years ago, I was surrounded by family and friends as I walked across that stage, and then life began. I went from BYU to a 2-year mission for my church, came back to BYU, countless breakdance practices, breakdance competitions, getting engaged, getting unengaged, selling door-to-door security, working at Victoria's Secret, living in Los Angeles, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Virginia, and Utah, finding a best friend who eventually I ended up marrying, working at a toy and candy store, running a toy and candy store, becoming a buyer and toy designer for it, buying a home, having that home robbed, having a kid, moving back to Singapore, having several more kids, Johns Hopkins for a master's degree, feeling every emotion under the sun, and ultimately making my way back here, right here, where it all began. 20 years ago. You're about to do the same thing. You're gonna walk across that stage and then it all begins. I love going to graduations. There's the whole ceremony of it, all of the emotions, but most of all, I love the graduation speeches.
Buy a toilet plunger. Trust me on this, don't wait until you need a plunger to buy a plunger.
You are graduating into a world that needs purpose, and it's up to you to create it.
Your path at 22 will not necessarily be your path at 32 or 42. One's dream is constantly evolving.
To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did.
By now you've received loads of advice already from your friends, from family, from your favorite influencers. The problem with advice is that often the person receiving it didn't have to do anything to get it. I once had a leader who said, "You need to go dig your own treasure, because only then will you treasure your treasure." So today, I'm not going to give you any advice. You don't need another person telling you what to do. In fact, you don't need advice. Most people don't need more advice or more answers. What they need is better asking. So to celebrate my 20th anniversary and your graduation, I'm going to give you the graduation speech I wish I had. No advice here, just tools to help you dig your own treasure. These 5 questions have changed my life, and I know they'll do the same for you, or not. I don't know. You get to decide. Now, the quality of your answers will depend entirely on the quality of your asking. So dig a little deeper. All right, so let's jump in. Wait, hold on one second. Graduation speakers are typically a little more formal than this. Give me 1 second. Okay, that's better. All right, question number 1. Who do you want to become? And I'm not talking about this in like the profession, I want to be a politician, I want to be a banker. I'm not talking about that. And I'm not talking about it in the sense of like things that I own, where I'm going to be a millionaire, I want to be a homeowner. No, I'm looking at it through a different lens. And in 2015, New York Times columnist David Brooks wrote this piece that was about resume virtues and eulogy virtues. He said the resume virtues are the ones you bring to the marketplace. These are skills, right? And then there are the eulogy virtues, and these are the things that are said about you at your funeral. Look, there's no right or wrong answer here. Maybe you do want people talking about your Excel skills at your funeral. I'm not here to judge, but it is important for you to understand who you're trying to become. The key here is asking the question so that you are intentional about who you're becoming. Now, another way that we can look at this is through the word identity. Identity comes from 2 Latin root words, essentitas, but that means being, and identidem, which means repeatedly. Author James Clear says that your identity is literally your repeated beingness. So what does this mean when it comes to becoming? Once again, James Clear has a good answer. He says that once you know who you want to become, then you just need to prove it to yourself with small wins. He says every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you finish a book, then perhaps you're the type of person who reads. If you go to the gym, you're the type of person who's healthy. All of these small votes cast each day build who you're becoming. Make that decision intentionally. So who do you want to become? Question number 2, what do you want to get A's in? Okay, so I stole this one from Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
One day his phone rang, and when he looked at it, it was somebody that he knew. In fact, it was one of his employees at a company that he owned, engaged in work that he enjoyed. But in that moment, he looked at it and he was like, I don't want to answer this. And so he let it ring. And he knew immediately what he needed to do. And so as soon as it stopped ringing, he called his lawyer and he said, shut down the production company and shut down the record label. Why would he do that?
I'm making B's in 5 things. I want to make A's in 3 things.
Now, some of you have gotten all A's since you were in preschool, and that's amazing. Unfortunately, that's just not how real life works. In life, there are trade-offs. We have to make choices. And there's no way for us to cram into one night all of the things that we need to do. So unlike when you could cram for your chemistry test and still get the A, there's no way to cram for a relationship. Have you ever tried exercising for 6 hours in a row? How do you feel the next day? Life isn't about cramming in so that you can pass a test. You'll have to make conscious decisions about what you really want to get A's in, and then you're gonna have to be cool. Yeah, it's cool, a couple B's, maybe a C. And what will happen is these will change over time. Sometimes you'll be real into your career and you'll wanna get an A in that because that's the phase of life that you're in. And other times it'll be relationships that take a back seat or take the front seat. It's okay to have it go back and forth. What we need to do is be really intentional about where we want to make our good grade. Now remember, as you're going through the grades, that this is your report card. The moment you start comparing to someone else's, which I know everybody here does, you do it all the time, I hear it in the hallways, the moment you start comparing, you lose. I love this story from Kurt Vonnegut, the author. He says he was at a party thrown by a billionaire with the other author, Joseph Heller, you know, Catch-22 author. And Kurt Vonnegut's joking with Heller and he's like, dude, I don't know that he said dude, but he said, hey, how does it make you feel to know that the guy who threw this party, that he made more today than your book, Catch-22, will ever make? And Heller turned to him and he said, actually, I've got something he'll never have. And Vonnegut laughs and says, what's that? And Heller says, I have the knowledge that I've got enough. Once you choose what you want to make A's in, tune out all the noise, right? Because these are your grades. So what do you want to make A's in? Okay, question number 3. Who's on your team? Kobe Bryant, you know, Kobe. He always had 4 teammates on the floor, right? These were the official ones. Starters, substitutes, didn't matter. 6th man coming off the bench. He always had a team. But that wasn't the only team, right? Because before the game ever even began, Kobe was working with trainers, he has a coach, he has a nutritionist, there were the staff, there was the security, there was the chef. Every single person contributed to Kobe Bryant's success. Kobe didn't win 5 championships by himself, right? What would have happened if the trainer hadn't stretched him out properly before a game? Or what if his head coach hadn't shown him the right game film? Kobe was a phenomenal player, but he wasn't a champion on his own. Sure, we're not trying to win NBA championships, I get that. But you're still trying to live your best life, right? So why wouldn't you surround yourself with the best team possible? And sometimes instead what we do is we default to whoever's around us instead of being intentional about selecting who our teammates are. Well, the people you invite along for the ride have a significant impact on the journey. A study by Harvard social psychologist David McClellan found that the people you habitually associate with determine as much as 95% of your success or failure. That number seems way too high, I get it. But imagine if we cut it in half, even if it was 50% of the time, it would still be crucial for you to find the right teammates. And don't mistake me here, the goal isn't an echo chamber of people who tell you what you want to hear and make you feel really comfortable with who you are. The goal is to create this diverse team with multiple perspectives and ways of looking at life who push you to become the best version of yourself. So who's on your team? Question number 4, how can you experiment with this? The famed economist Richard Feynman said, it doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. If you hopped on Google right now, you would find hundreds and thousands of different opinions on how to become the best version of yourself. You're gonna have 1 million studies that tell you, yeah, you should do the carnivore diet. You're gonna have another 1 million studies that say, yeah, you should be a vegan. And they all have scientific studies backing them up. So who's right? Well, maybe they both are. And for those people, that information is valid data for them. But what's the most important sample size? It's a sample size of 1, and it's you. It doesn't matter if getting up early worked good for this group and staying up late works for this group. What matters is what works for you. And the only way that you're gonna find out is by conducting experiments. So choose any part of your life that you wanna get better in, craft an experiment, and get your own data. So what do you want to experiment with? Okay, question number 5, this is it. What are you doing with what you have been given? The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the end of our life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life at the end of each day is never short of time." I love this idea of balancing the books each day. You were given today 24 hours. What did you do with it? John Calvin says, "For as God bestows any ability or gift on any of us, he binds us to such as have need of us, and as we are able to help." I love this. To me, it sounds like he's saying, look, I've given you all of these gifts and these skills and whatever else it is that you have, and I'm gonna put you in the path of someone who you're gonna complement perfectly because they need what you have and you have it. And then what do you do in that moment? What are you doing with the things that you've been given? You have this moment of decision, and how are you going to use what you've been given? Consider this story about presidential hopeful John F. Kennedy. He was in a hotly contested race with Richard Nixon. And during this time, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been thrown in jail and overnight had been moved to a high security prison. When Richard Nixon found out about this, he was advised not to say anything. Don't use anything, don't use your power, don't use your voice, don't say anything. Now, Kennedy was advised the same thing by some of his advisors, but Kennedy decided that he was going to reach out, that he would reach out to Dr. King's wife. And in a 2-minute conversation, he said, "I know this must be very hard for you. I understand you're expecting a baby, and I just wanted you to know that I was thinking about you and Dr. King. If there is anything I can do to help, please feel free to call me." That 1-minute conversation, brief amount of time, those kind words had a massive impact. In that moment, presidential hopeful John F. Kennedy could have decided, I'm not going to use my voice. I'm not going to use my power. I'm just going to hang back. Instead, he chose to speak up and reach out. And in that moment, he was able to offer what was needed. You all will have a variety of different resources, power, time, energy, financial resources. All of these will be at your disposal. And you're gonna have this moment where someone's gonna come across your path who needs you. So what are you going to do with what you've been given? Class of 2022, that's it. 5 tools for digging your own treasure for years to come. You've got this.